Robert, I'm delighted to have you here.
Good to see you, Neil.
Your story is a fascinating one. Apart from all that you've written, I'm very interested in where you've come from and how you've come to be this man of aphorisms. Now, I think I'm right in saying, am I not, that you started out pursuing languages other than English? Your first love, almost.
I did.
So tell me about that.
Well, my mother was a linguist. She was brought up between the two world wars in Europe, mainly France and Germany. And she wanted to pass her linguistic gifts on to me. And she encouraged me to do my 2 gap years abroad before doing national service and then Cambridge. And I got myself to Austria, to Innsbruck University. And believe it or not, Neil, I was the only English student. So I was forced to speak German from day one. And I did the same then my 2nd gap year. I went to Italy, to Perugia, and became nearly bilingual in Italian. So I was off to a flying start with languages.
So languages generally, including your mother tongue, but obviously you had that facility and that fascination with the spoken word.
I did. Excuse me. And interestingly enough, I found that the best way to learn one's own language or to deepen one's knowledge of English is to learn foreign languages. Because if you think about it, in all cases, you're looking for the mot juste, the right word. And it applies just as much to one's own language as to other languages.
And then after that, those early years studying and absorbing foreign language, other language, you got into newspaper journalism. Now, how did you make that transition?
Well, it was a while before I decided, because I first I was in academia and had a visiting lectureship at Toronto University in Canada, another country I lived in for a year. And then I had a Foreign Office consultancy, and I felt I didn't think being a civil servant was for me, you know? And then having looked around, as it were, I decided on a career in print journalism. And that was the beginning of it.
Now, the aphorisms, these one-liners, these pithy one-liners for which you are now renowned, what's the story there? Have they always been a part of your thinking and your writing?
No, they haven't.
So tell me how that came to be.
I'll tell you. Before I do, may I say how I got into journalism?
Yes, indeed.
It was quite extraordinary, because it relates to your last question as well. I was a cub reporter on North London News back in the mid-70s. And I was lucky enough to get a major interview with the late Margaret Thatcher in the year before she became Prime Minister.
Goodness, okay.
And it was a double-page spread in one of the local papers. I then very cheekily rang the London Times and said, would you be interested? And they said no, just like that. And I said, well, look, if I send it to you, will you at least have a look at it? They did, and 3 days later it appeared on the major feature page of the Times. And that opened all doors to me in journalism and led, eventually, to your last question, to my aphorisms.
And tell me how, has that been a running theme since you got into newspaper journalism? And if not, how did they come to occur to you?
Oh, I wish it had been a running theme from day one. I'd have written many, many more. The 40,000 roughly 40,000 that I have written, have been written in the last 22 years. And to answer your question, the genesis of those was when I wrote a play called Commanding Voices, which had a 5-week run up in Hampstead in London. And reading through it, I noticed there were 4 lines which were aphorisms. I'd written them kind of unknowingly, you know. And I thought, well, for heaven's sake, why can't I just do them out of context, just do them neat? And that was the start of it.
And so tell me some of your favourites. Give us a sense of what you mean by an aphorism.
Let me think. Fame is when reporters ask to interview your cat.
What else?
As opposed to you.
What else?
The British Empire ceased when butlers stopped ironing the morning paper.
I get a sense of where you're coming from. Do these aphorisms of yours appear? Where would a person find them? Are they in newspaper, in books? Where else?
Well, my first book, Wisdom and Wordplay, contained, I think, 300, published by Unicorn Public Press. My current book, which was out, oddly enough, this week,
which I can show you here. Here is the very piece. Now, this would be an aphorism, I believe. Peeing is relieving.
Yes, you're right.
And so it certainly is.
It's a play on, of course, seeing is believing. Yeah.
Okay. Also, there's a quote on the front there from no lesser figure than Stephen Fry. Mm. What inspires you to write an aphorism? You know, what subjects, what moods lead to the genesis?
I think a love of brevity and the growing awareness I've grown over the last 20 years that less is really more. That the more concise your thought, the expression of your thought, the harder the punch.
Brevity being the soul of wit.
Brevity being the soul of wit, although Dorothy Parker in New York disputed that. But yeah, I'm a great believer in that. And I get a huge buzz, Neil, from condensing a complex thought into a single, pithy, hopefully witty and profound line.
How many, final question I suppose really, how many aphorisms do you think you've written during the last 22 years?
I've written so far 37,000.
Would that put you in a category in the Guinness Book of Records?
I think it should, yes. You've given me a very good idea. I should apply to them.
Maybe have something that sums up the effort required to end up in the Guinness Book of Records.
But I was a little worried, to be frank, that younger people wouldn't take to them. So somebody encouraged me to go on TikTok, where suddenly they took off.
Wow, you're on TikTok?
I'm on TikTok, big time. We've got nearly 200,000 followers. No, hang on.
Let's say lots.
Yes. Coming up to 250,000, 200,000 followers.
Wow.
And just over 2 million likes.
Wow.
In a very short time. So I can't tell you how relieved and reassured I am that they've taken. I'm known as the TikTok's grandfatherly guru.
Brilliant. Robert Eddison, I can't thank you enough for making time for us this evening.